Hey there, YouTube family. Yesterday, NVIDIA obviously killed it with their earnings with an explosive move to the upside after hours. But today, what I was watching for was to see how that move would be digested, if it would stick, if they would lose ground, if the rest of the market would push up, or whether it would pull back. Largely, the overall markets were very mixed today. Mostly big tech was still moving higher. Microsoft in particular was doing pretty well, obviously, besides NVIDIA and AMD. They were up, Microsoft was up 4%, and Apple was holding ground. It was not breaking down. You know how I keep a close eye on Apple to see what the overall sentiment of the largest investment in the world is, which is Apple stock. If that begins to break down, it typically tells me that there might be some weakness in the whole market. Right now, it's holding up pretty well. I'm also going to break down some professional opinions regarding NVIDIA. I would say that I looked and took a good market breadth view of what people thought about this big move. I'm going to share some very insightful views from some people that I respect. This is the Stocks with Josh show. As always, appreciate you guys hitting that like. I thank all the new subscribers that are joining this community, and hit that notification bell so you can get all of the updates of the videos that I post. You know that my goal on this page is to give stock and crypto insights, analysis, and predictions in an easy to understand way. Thank you for hitting that subscribe and notification bell. So NVIDIA went up 20% after hours. NVIDIA actually added $200 billion in market cap in just a couple hours. They did it on an earnings per share beat of $1.09, which was actually a decline from last year of $1.36, which is quite interesting. So yes, they beat market's expectation, but it was significantly less than the same place that they were last year at a cheaper stock price. In addition to that, the revenue was down year over year 13%. This decreased revenue and decreased earnings per share, and yet this significantly higher stock price, causes us to ask the question, is this move justified, or is it setting up for a massive short opportunity? I'm going to examine both sides of that with you guys. NVIDIA reached an all-time high of $346, but then in October, it was one of the first big tech stocks to actually come to its lows, which was around $108. It hit that in October of 2022, way ahead of the rest of big tech. And from there, we've gone up 266% to $394. That was the peak of this current move. We pulled back a little bit, close to $400. And right away, all the analysts who are bullish have been coming out and saying, keep buying, it's going to $500. Well, we're going to look at the realisticness of that case. I'm going to try to make it as honest as I can. And I bought something today, so I'm going to let you know whether it was some more NVIDIA or what else it might have been. All right, let's kind of examine a little bit of the bullish case. And to do that, I'm going to go to Mark Mineravini. I mentioned him the other day in the video that before we had this big push up on NVIDIA, he came out and said, I am going in heavy on NVIDIA calls. And to that, a lot of people criticized him and said, oh man, aren't you late to big tech? You're going to go in heavy on NVIDIA calls. He did that. Obviously, it was the right call. And I'm going to give you his follow-up opinion that he gave today, which I found was very interesting. Let me read it to you guys. He said, believe it or not, this morning's big gap up only puts NVIDIA at the 8th most extended it's been in price. So it's a very simple comment. Basically, he's coming out. I'm sure that he is hesitantly bullish, but he's trying to tell everybody to put it in perspective. This particular run-up is not the highest or furthest that NVIDIA's price has gone. It's actually in 8th place as far as a big move for NVIDIA, or a multiple of expense for NVIDIA. So he's saying, keep it in perspective. Even though this was a massive move, there still could be room up because this isn't the most expensive NVIDIA has ever become. But he tied that to another post that he had given the other day that I think puts his overall position into perspective. Let me read that to you. He said, money's been running to the safety of mega caps, which we know that. All the big tech cap stocks is where all the money's been flowing. And today when I showed you guys that heat map of the S&P 500, it's showing the exact same thing. It's big tech that's still getting bought up today, with little appetite for risk and a dramatic underperformance coming for small and mid caps, which obviously we know that nobody's buying small and mid caps. It makes sense. Tuesday, we added NVIDIA to our focus list. Yesterday, we added Netflix. However, while the FANG names may run up a bit more on their own momentum, we will soon be approaching extended levels. So what he's saying is that, we're adding to these positions, and it's simply a momentum play. This is what advanced traders do. They trade the momentum, they trade the push. But he's saying that ultimately that momentum is going to come to an end. He said, we soon will be approaching extended levels. If we get a meaningful rally from here, I would sell FANG into the strength. So I just want to remind you guys, first of all, what he's saying is we're adding to our FANG positions, we're adding to NVIDIA, but if we get a big bullish move, a final push up, he said, we're going to sell into that. And remember what I said to you guys the other day about Morgan Stanley, where they said they were going to sell the conclusion of the debt ceiling, whether good or bad. They said they're just going to use it as a milestone. When we get to the conclusion of the debt ceiling, that's when they're going to sell their position, and they're probably going to hold off to the rest of the year. And they're going to play risk off on big tech, which is at, like Mark Minervini said, it's in an extended risk position. And in regards to the extended risk position, I want to specifically talk to you guys about the price to sales that NVIDIA has versus their peers. NVIDIA is basically pretty expensive based on its price to sales ratio. It's got a 28x. All right, compared to the peer average of 6.6x. So that is an extremely high price to sales ratio. And from a fundamental perspective, for a lot of fundamental traders, and you guys know I'm mostly a technical trader, I trade price action in the charts, but I definitely keep an eye on the fundamentals. And the fundamentals of a price to sales ratio for NVIDIA at 28x versus their peers at 6.6x means that this thing has gotten a really high price to sales ratio. I'm going to share a tweet by a gentleman by the name of Alf, which I thought was very interesting. He shared this tweet in regards to NVIDIA, something that the CEO of Sun Microsystems said back in 2000 when those guys hit the valuation of only 10x. So he said this when they hit a 10x valuation, and he's comparing that to the current FOMO surrounding NVIDIA when they're at 28x, which is massively bigger than the buying frenzy that occurred over on Sun Microsystems when they were at 10x. So let me read this to you. He said, at 10 times revenue, to give you a 10-year payback, I have to pay you 100% of the revenues for 10 straight years in dividends. That assumes that I can get that by my shareholders. That assumes that I have zero cost of goods sold, which is very hard for a computer company. That assumes zero expenses, which is really hard for a company with 40,000 employees. That assumes I pay no taxes, which is very hard. And that assumes that you pay no taxes on your dividends, which is kind of illegal. And that assumes with zero R&D for the next 10 years, that I can maintain the current revenue run rate. Now, having done that, would any of you like to buy my stock at $64? Do you realize how ridiculous those basic assumptions are? You don't need any transparency. You don't need any footnotes. What were you thinking? So he's basically saying that at the time, Sun Microsystems had gone up to a 10x, and he was saying, how can the company produce enough to return that value to the shareholders? It said, and he paints this picture of trying to return that value to the shareholders over 10 years and says it's basically impossible. He was saying that his stock was not a good investment when it was at a 10x price to sales ratio. And that perhaps for some of us puts into perspective about the extreme run-up of price on NVIDIA at a 28x. I want you guys to think about that. Now, also on the bearish case, and we're going to examine both sides. We're going to look at support and resistance. This isn't a trash NVIDIA, but this is sort of everything that you probably need to hear about your NVIDIA investment video. So over on TrendSpider, they pointed out that NVIDIA is coming into its worst performing month. They're giving us a nice little chart showing the average price return on NVIDIA in the stock market for every month of the year. And it shows that on average, historically, since 1991, June has been the worst performing month. Every single June, on average, the price has gone down around 3%. So here we had an unprecedented run-up. We could, between now and the end of this month, we could have another 5 days in which it runs up, but it's getting ready to go into a month which it has historically returned around a 3% negative return. So that is another thing we want to keep in mind. All right, so if you are bullish on NVIDIA, right, I'm going to tell you guys what I bought or sold today in a minute. If you're bullish and you want to buy NVIDIA, one of the biggest questions that you should be asking yourself is, where is support? Both the support and the resistance is going to tell you guys the best way to play the bear or the bull position on NVIDIA. Once you understand where the support could be, that could be your possible buy zone. And if you understand that support is beneath, that could be possibly where you take profits on a bearish position in a put or a short position. I'm going to break down those technicals for you guys in just a minute. I'm going to take a quick station break for the moomoo investment app. It's a limited time and exclusive offer to get up to 20 free stock. You can click on the link in the top pinned comment or the description of the video to get all of the details. These guys have all the order types that you need, all the conditional ordering that includes all of those stop losses that are needed to protect your investments. Plus, I host a chat group on the app called Stock Josh Fam. If you're a member of the chat, throw a heart and say hi in the comments for me. Open up your account, get your free stock, and come find the chat group. All right, if there was a single stock that was going to benefit from AI, it obviously would make sense that NVIDIA would be a company that would benefit. And sure enough, last night we saw a monumental return, greater than we've seen for any of the other big techs, putting AI yet again front and center to the investors. We also want to take into consideration the need for quantum computing. I think down the road, we're going to be looking at those stocks as well. I've got an upcoming video about the quantum computing companies that are going to move up coinciding with AI, because both are going to be needed in this new era that we're moving into. As I said to you before, analysts are now calling NVIDIA up to $500. But here's the point I want to make to you. It's extremely possible that NVIDIA is going to get up to $500, but it's not all going to happen overnight. It's going to be done level by level. Moves are going to be digested. People are going to take profit. As I said to you, we're up hundreds of percent from $108 on October NVIDIA low, right? We're up hundreds of percents. The smart money takes profits. They lock in profits and they buy again on support. I'm going to give you guys those support levels. So even though this could get to 500, the overall story will eventually take it to 500. It doesn't mean that the price action is just going to move so far away from the moving averages and never come back to the average. That's what it does. It moves away from it on enthusiasm and momentum, and then it comes back. It tests the support of the price action to make the next leg up. So I think this was a leg up, but now we're going to take a step back. We're going to come to some level of support. I'm going to give you guys those, and then it's going to make another move up from there in time. And it also has to take into consideration things like the debt ceiling, which can smack it down. That often is what will smack this down to support. All right, the first technical support that I want to draw your guys' attention to is the top of the Bollinger Bands. There's support there at $354. If a stock is flying away and it moves way outside the Bollinger Bands, it can come back down, touch the top of the Bollinger Band, and continue to move up along that line. So your first support, I'm going to call it bullish level 1. Your first support is going to be $354. Now, I'm going to call the next one bullish level 2. This is if it comes back to historic support, which was $346. Remember, that was your all-time high, and it had once been resistance. But when we broke through 346, we're likely to come back and back test it, and then what was resistance will become support. So the all-time high of 346 is your second level of support. Now, I also want to point out to you guys that 346 coincides with a natural fib level. So there's two reasons why technically 346 would be a level that NVIDIA would want to come back to. So if you're bullish level 2, you'd buy in at 346 or take profits on a bearish position at 346. Now our next level of bull is going to be the next fib level below, which is $295. That's a very natural price point for NVIDIA to come back to. If you're patient and you want to let this move get digested and for it to eventually come back to you for a reasonable level to get in for that potential move up to 500, your bullish level 3 would be $295. Again, that's the next fib level below. Now, the last zone that I'm going to give you guys, and this is for the extra patient, these are for the people that are only in it for stocks that go up, that's going to be $285. And what makes that a support is that, one, it was the last accumulation zone. So there's a lot of buyers that accumulated at 285 for this big push up that we just saw. They will have taken profits up above and they'll come back and buy at that exact same level because that level had conviction. It had what I'd call buy conviction before. So your level 4 for being a bull would be $285 buy entry. And if you're a bear, a super greedy bear, you could potentially hold for it to get all the way down to 285. But of course, in that role, it may never get there. So that's where you have to have a little bit of balance in your perspective. Those are your entry and exit levels depending on which direction you're trading this. So what did I buy? What did I sell? Well, I sold NVIDIA today and I bought an inverse ETF called NVDS. Now, I still have exposure to NVIDIA in other ETFs like the VOO, but I sold my NVIDIA and I bought NVDS. This is an inverse of NVIDIA. Now, I just want to review the risks. This is actually less risky from some type of positions you can take, but of course it has some inherent risks. It's less risky and less expensive than options or direct shorting. But because it's an ETF, it does carry some fees. Those are typically minimal. It also gets recalculated like a lot of inverse ETFs so that it can continue to match the price of the underlying that it tracks, which is NVIDIA, and you get loss in those recalculations. Let me go through some of the technicals. Now, technically on this, there's not a lot of history because this inverse to NVIDIA has not been around as long as NVIDIA's been around. But so at this point, technically, there is no support below. So if NVIDIA were to continue to run up, there's no technical history that would give us a support below for NVDS. But I would say that the buy range right now for me would be around $9.20. It dropped 32% down to go outside of the Bollinger Bands when NVIDIA made the massive move up to go to the upside and outside of NVIDIA's Bollinger Bands. People bought when it went outside of those bands. They bought up at $8.95, and then it's since moved into the bands at $9.60 midday today. If you wanted to be conservative and you believe that NVIDIA is going to have some volatility going up and down, I think you will be able to buy it at $9.20 to around $9. I got in around $9. I got into $10 strike price calls. I do not intend to hold them long. I intend to trade NVIDIA and the inverse NVIDIA back and forth as it moves according to support and resistance, the same ones I'm giving you. Let me just give you guys an overcap on the markets. Guys, the trend is still bullish. That has to be expected. I'm going to continue to warn, though, about the fact that we're on elevated levels at all of these stocks, and it's wise to put in some stop losses to protect the profits that might have been made since October or January. So you know I'm recommending tight stop losses, and I'm recommending taking some profits. The biggest problem that most retail investors have is they don't use a stop loss and they never take profits. All they do is ride the roller coaster all day up and down. Now, roller coasters are fun if you ride them for just a moment, but they would get really unpleasant if you had to ride them for a long period of time. Some of you guys are in a very unpleasant position because that's all you've been doing day after day, week after week, riding that roller coaster, getting yourself sick to your stomach. Taking profits is just to get off the roller coaster, enjoy the normalcy of life before getting back on and enjoying the thrill. I'm going to be buying and selling, but I'm going to be hedging my positions. Hedges like the NVDS as well as the SQQQ. I did not sell my SQQQ. I expected this to begin to pull back. I told everybody that it could go as low as $22, but nobody knows. I bought a little bit sub $25 today, but I have my eye on the target of 22 bucks. If we get down there, I'm going to buy my biggest chunk at 22 bucks, and in my view, the markets will turn around. I think this is going to ramp up to 33 or 34 bucks. And if I play my cards right, this could absolutely be a $10,000 win. I'm not expecting to lose any money on SQQQ. But this is not a suggestion for what you guys should buy, sell, or hold. And I want you guys to understand my strategy. Don't just buy it and hold it with no strategy, putting all your money in on one price point. You can see that I have been adding slowly to my position, increasing my position size as it drops in price so that when we get a reversal, I'll have a pretty good moving average, which will allow me to have a nice profit. Otherwise, I wouldn't really know how you're going to win at it. You might just get scared and sell for a loss. That's what a lot of retail might do. My very next video is going to be on Bitcoin and crypto. I see some very interesting setup going on in the charts, but I'm going to share that with you guys in the next video. As always, I appreciate the likes that I get. Thank you guys for subscribing today and coming and joining this conversation that we have daily. As always, peace and blessings, my friends. We'll see you in the next video.